Why understanding the three kingdoms is understanding life. Under the vast sky where the wind blows and clouds drift endlessly, the human world flows like a mighty river, rushing through the ages without pause. An ancient saying goes, "Heaven and earth are indifferent, treating all creatures as mere straw dogs." Despite the chaos, humans still strive to establish order, to create meaning. From this, works of literature, like beacons in the sea, were born, lighting the way for lost travelers. Among these, the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is not just a tale of warfare and strategy. It is a grand mirror reflecting human nature and the world's transformations. For those who understand it, it illuminates countless paths, while those in the dark remain lost in a fog of uncertainty. The ancients taught, human nature is innately good, yet amidst the ever-flowing stream of life, this goodness is often clouded by desire, led astray by power, and shaken by adversity. Take Liu Bei, a humble man from the countryside, with nothing but his bare hands. Yet, he managed to earn the loyalty of Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, who pledged to follow him through life and death. Why? Because Liu Bei possessed the determination of a towering mountain, with words as pure and soothing as a cool stream, reaching deep into people's hearts. He didn't use wealth to bribe, nor force to coerce. Instead, he won their loyalty with his sincere heart. This shows that in this world, those with a clear purpose, who can convey their ideas to others, can, even with nothing, inspire others to give their lives without complaint. Now look at Cao Cao during the Battle of Guandu, facing Yuan Shao's enormous forces. Instead of confronting them head-on, he cleverly identified the enemy's weaknesses, burning their supplies and turning their strength into ashes. Or Zhuge Liang at the Battle of Red Cliffs, using straw boats in the mist and exploiting Cao Cao's doubts to shift the tide of war. From these, we learn an important lesson. The wise are not always the strongest, but those who can see through others, hide their intentions, and strike at the enemy's weakest points. Life is the same. Sometimes it is not about displaying strength, but about learning to adapt, like water flowing through narrow crevices, soft yet persistent, patient yet deep. Life is never a smooth path, and calm seas are but a fleeting dream. Sima Yi and Yang Hu, both incredibly talented, had their fates divided like the moon hidden behind clouds. Sima Yi waited patiently, like a hibernating snake, for the right moment to rise and seize the world. Yang Hu, on the other hand, flaunted his talents and ended up pushing himself into a sharp blade's path. Isn't this a great lesson? The wise know when to bow before adversity, hiding their talents like gems within stone, waiting for the right moment to shine. The arrogant, no matter how talented, are like grass before a fierce wind, easily broken without a trace. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a mirror reflecting human nature. This world is like a great river, flowing endlessly through the ages, sometimes calm and peaceful, at other times surging with waves. In this river, humans are like small boats, some drifting with the favorable winds, others sinking in storms. Amid the chaos of human life, the Romance of the Three Kingdoms stands like a lighthouse in the open sea, guiding the lost, directing the minds of the people through dark alleys. The ancients once said, "Heaven and earth are the forge, and nature is the craftsman." In this forge, human nature is tempered through countless forms and transformations. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms is not merely a tale of war filled with smoke and strategies, but a great clear mirror reflecting the essence of human nature, from loyalty and righteousness to deep desires, from grand aspirations to hidden petty traits. Success, a visionary path, deep strategy, and patience like a mountain. Life is like the wind sweeping across the meadow, sometimes fierce and untamed, sometimes quiet and subtle. Under the vast sky, the one who stands firm is not necessarily the one with the sharpest sword or the fastest horse, but the one whose heart carries a vision as grand as Mount Tai, whose strategy flows like the mighty Yangtze River, and whose patience is as deep as an abyss of 1,000 fathoms. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms depicts great talents: Liu Bei, who rose from humble beginnings; Cao Cao, whose strategies changed the course of history; Zhu Liang, whose wisdom altered the fate of kingdoms; and Sima Yi, who waited silently for the perfect moment to rise. All these figures demonstrate an unchanging truth. Success does not come from outward strength, but from inner wisdom, from the ability to endure through storms, and from the skill to hide like a gem within stone, waiting for the right moment to shine. Consider Liu Bei, a man who started with nothing but tattered clothes and empty hands, yet managed to inspire Guan Yu and Zhang Fei to pledge their lives to him. Why? Because his heart carried a lofty ambition, as guiding as the North Star. His words were like the spring breeze, penetrating deeply into the hearts of others, without the need for gold or jewels to win their loyalty. He did not rely on power to dominate, nor on force to subjugate, but used his sincere heart as a tether, drawing those great heroes to his side. Life is the same. Those with clear ambitions who can paint a future with their words and actions can inspire others to willingly give their lives, even starting with nothing. This is the power of will, stronger than any sword, more irreplaceable than any throne. In the tumultuous world of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, success is not the product of fleeting power or external conquest, but of an inner vision, patience, and the capacity to influence others through authenticity and unwavering resolve. The essence of leadership, strategy, and resilience encapsulated in the struggles of Liu Bei, Cao Cao, Zhu Liang, and Sima Yi offers a timeless blueprint for navigating the turbulent waters of life and business alike. Lessons from the Three Kingdoms. The wisdom of patience and strategy. Consider Cao Cao at the Battle of Guandu, facing Yuan Shao's overwhelming strength, with armies vast like clouds and commanders as formidable as mountains. Rather than opting for a direct confrontation, Cao Cao quietly observed, identifying the enemy's weakness, the supply depot, and set fire to it, reducing their might to ashes. Or Zhuge Liang at the Battle of Red Cliffs, amidst thick fog, using straw boats to intercept arrows and exploiting Cao Cao's doubts to alter the course of destiny. Zhou Yu, on the other hand, employed counterintelligence, tricking Tai Mao and Zhang Xuan into destroying their own water forces, leading to Cao Cao's ultimate defeat. From these moments, we learn the wise are not those who display their strength through banners and showmanship, but those who can see through others, targeting their vulnerabilities. Like water flowing through cracks in rock, they achieve success without noise, breaking mountains without force. In life, facing the mighty relying on strength alone is like an egg thrown against a rock. But if armed with strategy, one becomes like the wind pushing clouds, unstoppable. Yet strategy alone is not enough. Success also requires patience. Sima Yi and Yang Hu, two of the most talented individuals, followed two contrasting paths. Sima Yi, like a hibernating snake, hid his claws beneath soft skin, waiting for the right moment to seize the world, while Yang Hu, in his arrogance, flaunted his intellect and misinterpreted Cao Cao's intentions, ultimately driving himself into the path of the sharpest blade. The ancients taught, "A great person must endure, and great matters require stillness. Life is never a calm river. Waves will rise, and those who know how to humble themselves will weather the storm, while the arrogant will be scattered like mist." The Romance of the Three Kingdoms teaches us that success is not won in a single battle, but in the waiting of 1,000 days, in persistence amid adversity, and in the light that shines from the deepest shadows. 8 profound lessons from the Three Kingdoms. The wisdom of avoiding calamity in the human world. Keeping one's word. Lu Bu, the traitor who lost trust. The world is like a vast field where the winds blow and carry the seeds of fate. Those who sow good deeds reap sweet rewards, while those who spread evil seeds will invite deep misfortune. Among the many principles that shape a person's life, trust stands like Mount Tai, solid and unwavering in the storm, supporting the bond between people. The ancients taught, without trust, a person cannot stand firm in this world. Lu Bu, a renowned hero of the Three Kingdoms era, wielding the mighty Fang Tian Huaji and riding the famous Chitu horse, had the strength of a raging river and the speed to cross 1,000 miles. Yet, in the end, he met his tragic demise at Bai Men Lu, his body exposed to the elements. How could such a talented man fall so low? Because he treated promises like drifting clouds and loyalty like dust in the wind. Driven by ambition and desire, he betrayed one after another, losing both the world and the trust of those around him. Let's look back at Lu Bu's journey, a picture soaked in blood and deceit. At first, he served under Ding Yuan, trusted as his right-hand man. But when Dong Zhuo raised his banner, offering power and wealth, Lu Bu didn't hesitate to kill Ding Yuan and present his head to the new ruler. This betrayal was just the beginning. When Dong Zhuo took Lu Bu as his adopted son, it seemed their bond was as strong as mountains. Yet, just because of a glance from Dai Chen, Lu Bu killed his adopted father, causing rivers of blood to flow and shattering any semblance of loyalty. Later, when he allied with Liu Bei and took control of Xuzhou, believing they shared common ideals, Lu Bu betrayed Liu Bei once more when Cao Cao called upon him. He expelled Liu Bei like a dog without a master. Human hearts, much like still waters, are easily disturbed by a stone thrown into them, and Lu Bu became the one who threw the stone into the trust of countless others, eventually drowning in the waves of betrayal. Lu Bu's downfall was no accident. When Cao Cao surrounded the city of Xiapi, none of Lu Bu's subordinates, men who had once sworn to live and die together, came to his aid. Even though men like Chen Gong and Zhang Lao were more capable than most, they did not risk their lives for him, for they knew that someone who cannot keep their word is not worth entrusting their life to. When Lu Bu was tied and stood before Cao Cao's sword, he begged Liu Bei for mercy. But Liu Bei, with cold eyes, said nothing. That was the price of betrayal. When the cold winds blow, no one stands behind you to shield you. No one extends a hand to lift you. Lu Bu died, not because he lost a battle, but because he lost the trust of the world, losing the anchor that had once kept him afloat. In life, the word trust is like a light in the darkness, like a bridge connecting two shores. Those who keep their promises, like Liu Bei, may be poor but still inspire the loyalty of Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, who would die for him. Those who fail to keep their word, like Lu Bu, no matter how powerful, are like grass before the wind. No one dares to rely on them. No one dares to come near. The ancients said, "A word once spoken is like an arrow. It cannot be taken back." Lu Bu uttered countless vows, but each word was an arrow shot into the trust of others, and in the end, the final arrow pierced his own heart, ending the life of a gifted yet ill-fated man. Looking at Lu Bu, we reflect on our own lives. In the human world, whether one wears ragged clothes or holds royal power, if words do not align with actions, if loyalty is obscured by ambition, one becomes like a boat with no anchor, drifting in the vast ocean, unsure of where to dock. A wise person keeps their word as they would keep a precious gem in their hand, never letting it slip, no matter how difficult. For while empires may fall and riches may fade, once trust is broken, nothing can replace it. Lu Bu stands as a shining yet cold mirror, reflecting the truth. Without trust, one cannot stand firm, cannot succeed, and can only fall amidst the dust of the mortal world, leaving behind a sigh for future generations. Don't overreach. Yuan Shu. Ambition beyond limits. Life is like a ceramic vase, small enough to hold rainwater, large enough to contain fine wine. But if greed fills it beyond its capacity, it will shatter into pieces beyond repair. Under the vast sky, where the winds sweep and clouds drift relentlessly, people are often led by ambition, like a bird dreaming of flying across the ocean, not realizing the limitations of its small wings. The ancients taught, "He who knows contentment is always happy, but excessive desire brings disaster." Yuan Shu, born into a prestigious family, held the imperial seal in his hand and dreamt of becoming emperor, believing that the world would kneel at his feet. Yet, in the end, he met his downfall, dying alone, his dream unfulfilled. He is a chilling example of the truth. Those who strive for more than they can handle are like trees growing on cliffs, with roots too shallow, and when the wind blows, they topple. Look at Yuan Shu's journey, painted with the colors of gold and jade, yet tainted with failure. Born into the influential Yuan family, with power like a towering mountain and fame as vast as the clouds, Yuan Shu believed that, in the chaos of the three kingdoms, with his high status, a mighty army, and the imperial seal, a symbol of heaven's will, the world would soon be his. But his greed knew no bounds, like a river overflowing its banks, sweeping away both reason and strategy. In 197, while Cao Cao and Liu Bei were fighting over land, Yuan Shu declared himself the emperor of the Eastern Han, seated on a throne in Shouchun, believing himself to be the son of heaven, and that the people would bow to him. He lived in luxury, with grand palaces, feasts overflowing with wine and meat, but forgot that the land of Jianghuai was barren. The people were starving and the soldiers were weary. Yuan Shu's ambition was like a wildfire, beautiful but dangerous. He failed to see that his strength was like a spring breeze, unable to blow away Mount Tai. His army, though numerous, lacked supplies. His generals, though talented, were not united. When Cao Cao sent troops to attack Shouchun, Yuan Shu could not defend it and had to flee to Huainan. Land was lost, allies abandoned him, and even Liu Bei, who had once sought his aid, turned his back on him. The peak of his downfall came when he reached Shouyang, starving and so desperate that he begged a subordinate for a bowl of honey, only to be refused. In despair, he uttered, "How has Yuan Shu fallen so low?" He died, coughing up blood, his body abandoned in the fields, his imperial dream turned to smoke. A man who once dreamed of sitting on the throne ended up with nothing but cold ash in his hands, leaving behind a long sigh for future generations. From Yuan Shu, we learn a profound lesson. Life is like a boat on a river. If it is rowed with strength in proportion to its capacity, it will safely navigate the waves. But if overburdened, it will capsize in the current. Ambition is the wind that pushes the boat forward. But if the wind is too strong, the boat will not endure. Yuan Shu dreamed of being emperor, but lacked the governance skills of Liu Bei, the strategies of Cao Cao, or the patience of Sima Yi. He was a man caught between talent and desire, attempting to pluck stars from the sky while forgetting that his arms were too short. The ancients say, "Measure your strength before you act. Know the time before you act." Yuan Shu did not measure his strength, nor did he understand the time and let his ambition blind him, ultimately pushing himself into an abyss from which he could never return. Looking at Yuan Shu, we reflect on ourselves. In life, everyone has great dreams. Everyone wants to reach the peak of the mountain. But the wise, like a bird perched on a branch just right for its wings, know how far they can fly. They don't risk flying over the sea without preparation. The greedy, like Yuan Shu, may think that holding the imperial seal means destiny is in their hands, but they forget that destiny does not favor those who cannot bear its weight. In life, knowing when to stop, like water flowing at just the right pace, brings peace. Pushing beyond one's limits, like breaking a dam, only causes the flood to overwhelm. Yuan Shu is a great lesson, reminding future generations ambition is not wrong, but to overreach beyond one's means is like Icarus in mythology, whose wax wings melted and sent him plummeting into the sea, never to be seen again. Avoid arrogance. Zudu Yang Tu Ma Tuo. Pride leads to disaster. Life is like a tall mountain. The one who reaches the summit is not necessarily the fastest, but the one who keeps their feet grounded, never allowing pride to cloud their vision. Under the vast sky, where the winds carry dust and debris without end, arrogance is a sharp blade that cuts into oneself before it harms others. The ancients taught, humility is virtue, arrogance is disaster. In the romance of the three kingdoms, Shu Du, Yang Tu, and Ma Tuo, three of the most talented individuals, all fell amidst the turbulent currents of life, not because their enemies were too strong, but because their arrogance clouded their judgment and their haughty words turned others against them. They are like three bright lights that burned out too quickly, shining a light on the truth. Those who stand on high and forget to lower their heads are like trees growing in the wind, with shallow roots that break when the storm hits. Take Shu Du, a famous scholar under Cao Cao's command, whose talent shone brightly like a gem in the night sky. He was a man of strategy, advising Cao Cao to seize the imperial throne and establish a great empire, his words sharp, like a sword cutting through the fog of war. But Zhu Du forgot that talent is like fire. It should burn just enough to illuminate the way, not too much to consume itself. After the victory at Guandu, when Cao Cao called him by his courtesy name Zi Yuan as a close friend, Shu Du, drunk on success, responded arrogantly, "Without me, you would have accomplished nothing." That boast, like an arrow shot into the sky, seemed to elevate him, but instead it returned and pierced his own heart. Despite Cao Cao's respect for his talent, he could not forgive such disrespect and ordered Shu Du's execution in a cold fit of rage. Shu Du died, not because of lack of ability, but because his arrogance led him straight into the path of his own doom. Next, consider Yang Tu, an extraordinarily intelligent man whose wisdom shone as brightly as the stars. Under Cao Cao's command, he was the only one who could decipher the hidden meaning in the word Huan, delay, written by Cao Cao on the door of the garden. Yang Tu did not keep this knowledge to himself, flaunting his brilliance in front of others, making Cao Cao both pleased and wary. Not stopping there, when Cao Cao tested the knowledge of his two sons, Cao Pi and Cao Shu, Yang Tu secretly helped Cao Shu answer the questions, surpassing his older brother. Cao Pi, envious, reported this to his father, and Cao Cao, enraged, shouted, "This bastard dares to deceive me!" From that moment on, mistrust grew in Cao Cao's heart, like dark clouds covering the sky. In 219, when Cao Cao sought a reason to eliminate those who overshadowed him, Yang Tu was falsely accused of colluding with the enemy and died tragically at the age of 34. Yang Tu, as talented as a mountain, was also as proud as the clouds, unaware that while clouds are beautiful, they are fragile, easily blown away by the wind. Finally, we have Meiyu Tuo, the beloved student of Zhuge Liang, skilled in military strategy and known for his sharp tactical mind. During the northern expedition of Shu Han, Zhuge Liang entrusted him with guarding the key pass of Xiadeng, a vital defense against the Wei forces. Ma Tuo, overly confident, ignored the advice of his subordinate, Wang Bing, and set up camp on a high mountain, believing the Wei army could not breach it. He forgot that military strategy teaches, you rely on the mountain but never camp on it, and that arrogance blinds one to imminent threats. Sima Yi, leading the Wei army, surrounded the camp, cut off the water supply, and set fire to the forest, leading to a crushing defeat for the Shu forces. Ma Tuo fled, abandoning the Xiadeng Pass in flames, ruining Zhuge Liang's northern campaign. When he was captured and brought back to Zhuge Liang, the latter wept but could not forgive him, executing Ma Tuo to maintain discipline. Ma Tuo's death was not due to ignorance, but because his arrogance made him disregard his enemies and ignore the wisdom of his master. 3 gifted men, 3 tragic fates, all bound by the same lesson. Pride is a powerful wind that lifts a person high, only to hurl them into the abyss. Shu Du's arrogance towards Cao Cao, thinking he could look down upon him. Yang Tu flaunting his brilliance before his lord, unaware that such light can blind. Ma Tuo's overconfidence, failing to understand that even the highest mountains can collapse. The ancients taught, do not be proud when you are on high, and do not be arrogant when things go smoothly. In life, talent is like jade, but humility is the vessel that holds it. Without the vessel, the jade will be lost and shattered, and no one will pick it up. Looking at these 3 examples, we reflect on our own lives. In the human world, everyone wants to stand on the peak. Everyone dreams of commanding the world. But the wise, like water flowing steadily beneath the surface, are quiet and persistent. Those who are arrogant, like clouds drifting in the sky, are beautiful yet unstable. Shu Du, Yang Tu, and Ma Tuo serve as warnings. Talent alone is not enough. Sharp tongues are not enough. And if the heart does not know when to humble itself, it will fall like a bird with broken wings, crashing to the ground without anyone to mourn. This truth remains unchanged throughout time. Humility is the virtue that lifts one up, while arrogance is the disaster that brings one down. Like the moon's reflection on a lake, bright yet fragile, its light fading away with the waves. Control your emotions. Zhang Fei. Anger leads to death. Life is like a great river, sometimes calm and peaceful, at other times stormy and turbulent. But human emotions are like wild horses. Without reins, they run amok, and if not controlled, they harm the rider. Under the vast sky, where the wind blows and dust stirs endlessly, anger is a fire burning within, small enough to light the way through the darkest night, but large enough to consume the entire self, leaving no ashes behind. The ancients taught, endure for a moment and the wind will calm. Take a step back and the sea and sky will expand. Zhang Fei, a fierce warrior of the 3 kingdoms whose strength was like a river's force, whose voice was like thunder, met his end not because of a mighty enemy, but because of his uncontrolled anger, which led him to a deadly blade. He was a mountain that crumbled under its own weight, a bright light that burned out too soon, illustrating the truth. Someone who cannot control their emotions is like breaking the dam of a river. The flood is unstoppable. Look at Zhang Fei's journey. A picture painted in blood and fire, beautiful yet tragic. He was Liu Bei's right-hand man, his sworn brother in the Peach Garden, vowing to live and die together. Zhang Fei's talent was unmatched. At the Battle of Changban, he stood alone on the Changban Bridge, shouting so fiercely that Cao Cao's army was paralyzed with fear. At the Battle of Duling, he led his troops to crush Sun Quan's forces, making the enemy tremble before his godlike power. But Zhang Fei carried within him an unquenchable flame, his anger like an undercurrent always ready to erupt. He frequently beat his subordinates, scolded his soldiers, and treated his men like dirt, neglecting to keep their loyalty. Liu Bei once advised him, "You are too quick to anger. You must control yourself to avoid disaster." But Zhang Fei laughed it off, believing that his strength and reputation would make the world bow before him, without the need for gentler words. Zhang Fei's greatest mistake came at the end of his life. In 221, when Liu Bei declared himself emperor and vowed to avenge Guan Yu, Zhang Fei was tasked with leading the army to attack eastern Wu. His heart was burning with anger at the loss of his brother and vowed to raise the land of Jiangdong to avenge his death. He ordered his soldiers to sow white flags for 3 days to mourn Guan Yu. But when 2 generals, Fan Gong and Zhang Da, were delayed, Zhang Fei did not ask the reason, but instead erupted in fury, shouting, "How dare you disobey my orders?" He ordered them to be tied up and beaten brutally, causing them to bleed heavily, their hatred for him growing deeper. That night, drunk in his tent, Zhang Fei's rage was still simmering, unaware that disaster was approaching. Fan Gong and Zhang Da, consumed with resentment, snuck into his tent in the dead of night, stabbed him to death, and took his head to Eastern Wu to surrender. A mighty general who once made the world tremble met his end in his sleep, unable to defend himself, simply because his anger turned into a blade that turned against him. Zhang Fei's fate serves as a profound warning. He was strong as a mountain and fierce as a river, but the fire of anger within him was his greatest enemy, stronger than Cao Cao's army and fiercer than Sun Quan's soldiers. If he had controlled himself, like Zhuge Liang quietly raising his fan on the battlefield, or Sima Yi smiling at insults, perhaps his fate would have been different. But Zhang Fei allowed his emotions to lead the way, mistaking anger for authority, unaware that authority does not secure loyalty. It only drives others to betrayal. The ancients said, "A calm mind leads to harmony. A troubled heart brings disaster." Zhang Fei's heart was turbulent, his breath out of balance, and his unchecked anger burned through his life, leaving a long sigh for Liu Bei and the Shu kingdom. Looking at Zhang Fei, we reflect on our own lives. In this world, who hasn't been angry at times, who hasn't felt the fire of rage within? But the wise, like water flowing over stones, are soft yet strong. They know how to extinguish the flame before it spreads. The foolish, like Zhang Fei, let anger take control, like setting fire to a house in a raging wind, with nothing left to save. In life, anger is like the wind. Blow just enough and it cools the heart. Blow too hard and it sweeps everything away. Zhang Fei's story is a great lesson, reminding us that controlling emotions is the reins that hold the horse. Without them, the horse runs wild, harming the rider. This truth is eternal. A calm heart is a boat that sails through the storm, while unchecked anger is a stone sinking in the deep, and no one can pull it back. Avoid jealousy. Zhou Yu. Envy destroys the self. Life is like a flower blooming in a deep forest, each bloom with its own color, each tree with its own fragrance. Yet, the human heart is often clouded by jealousy, unable to appreciate the beauty of others, and instead focusing on the blemishes within oneself. Under the vast sky where the wind blows and clouds drift endlessly, jealousy is a dagger hidden in the chest, stabbing oneself before it harms the enemy. The ancients taught, a person's talent is like the fragrance of a flower. It brings joy when admired, but brings weight when envied. Zhou Yu, a brilliant strategist of the Three Kingdoms whose strategy shone like stars and whose appearance was as beautiful as jade, died young in the middle of an unfulfilled dream. His downfall was not caused by a stronger enemy, but by the jealousy he harbored toward Zhuge Liang, a fire that consumed him. He was a strong wind that stopped on its own, a bright light that shattered, revealing the truth. Someone who holds on to envy is like carrying a stone in deep waters. No one can pull them up. Look at Zhou Yu's journey, a painting drawn with talent and regret. He was the grand strategist of Eastern Wu, holding military power in Jiangdong, more intelligent than anyone, and his handsome face made him admired by all. The Battle of Red Cliffs in 208 was the pinnacle of Zhou Yu's genius. He used fire attacks, borrowing the east wind to burn Cao Cao's navy to ashes, a victory that shook the world, making his name thunder through the lands. Sun Quan held him in high regard, entrusting him with the kingdom, believing that Zhou Yu would help Eastern Wu stand strong amid the three divided kingdoms. But within Zhou Yu, a shadow grew silently, like dark clouds covering the sky. A jealousy toward Zhuge Liang, the strategist of Shu Han, whose talents were as great as his. Zhou Yu saw Zhuge Liang's superior skills, his deep strategies, and his calm demeanor, and his heart could not bear it, like a fire smoldering, never extinguished. Zhou Yu's jealousy was most evident after the Battle of Red Cliffs, when the alliance between Shu and Wu was still strong. Zhou Yu once plotted to lure Zhuge Liang into eastern Wu with the intention of eliminating him. But Zhuge Liang not only escaped, but also caused Zhou Yu several defeats in his plans to seize Jingzhou. Each time they faced each other, Zhou Yu saw Zhuge Liang calm and composed, his words gentle like a breeze, his strategies flowing like water, and his heart grew more frustrated. He once lamented, "Heaven gave me Zhou Yu, why did it also give birth to Zhuge Liang?" These words were not praise, but a sigh filled with jealousy, a gust of wind that tore apart his own sails. Zhuge Liang, with his extraordinary intellect, paid no attention to rivalry, quietly helping Shu Han, while Zhou Yu, consumed by jealousy, turned his talents into a burden, his strategies into a simmering rage that never ceased. Zhou Yu's tragic end came as if destined. In 210, when he led his troops to attack the western regions, intending to surpass Zhuge Liang, his health had already deteriorated from illness and stress. During the march, when he heard that Zhuge Liang had predicted Eastern Wu's plans and countered them, Zhou Yu's anger caused him to cough up blood, and he fell from his horse in the middle of the battlefield. Before he died, he looked up to the sky and lamented, "Heaven is against me," and then breathed his last at the age of 36. Zhou Yu died, not because of Cao Cao or Liu Bei, but because his jealousy, like a fire, burned up his health, consumed his dreams, and left nothing but ashes. He was talented like jade, but that jade shattered under the shadow of envy, leaving behind a deep sigh for Sun Quan and Eastern Wu. From Zhou Yu, we learn a profound lesson. In life, the talents of others are like flowers blooming by the roadside. Admire them and enjoy the beauty, but do not compete with them, for jealousy only weighs down the heart. Zhou Yu was not inferior to Zhuge Liang in terms of strategy, but he lost because of his lack of generosity. Zhuge Liang saw Zhou Yu as a partner, while Zhou Yu saw Zhuge Liang as a rival. If he had let go of his envy, like water flowing over stones without contention, perhaps Eastern Wu would have been a stronger pillar, and perhaps Zhou Yu would have lived longer to accomplish even greater feats. The ancients said, "A broad heart opens the sky, a narrow one confines the land." Zhou Yu's narrow heart, gripped by jealousy, ultimately destroyed him, and he could not harm anyone else. Looking at Zhou Yu, we reflect on our own lives. In this world, who hasn't seen others surpass them? Who hasn't felt envy rise within them? But the wise, like clouds drifting across the sky, move lightly through the wind and dust. The foolish, like Zhou Yu, hold on to stones of jealousy, sinking into a deep abyss. In life, jealousy is darkness. It doesn't make others dimmer, but only dims one's own light. Zhou Yu is a great lesson, reminding us that letting go of envy is like a boat navigating through turbulent waves, while holding on to jealousy is like being bound by a rope in deep waters, unable to free oneself. This truth is timeless. A broad heart is a path to the farthest journey, while a narrow one leads to a dead end, like a flower blooming in the forest, beautiful yet unclaimed and uncompetitive. Avoid arrogance. Guan Yu's self-satisfaction leads to death. Life is like a towering mountain. The one who reaches the peak is not necessarily the strongest, but the one who knows how to remain humble, not allowing arrogance to cloud their vision. Under the vast sky, where the wind blows and dust swirls relentlessly, arrogance is a powerful wind that lifts someone to great heights, only to bring them crashing down into a deep abyss. The ancients taught, fulfillment leads to loss, humility leads to gain. Guan Yu, a heroic figure of the three kingdoms, whose loyalty shone like the full moon and whose strength was like a mighty river, met a tragic end, not because his enemy was too powerful, but because his self-satisfaction created a barrier that blinded him to the approaching danger. He was a towering tree that fell on its own, a bright light that shattered, revealing the truth. One who stands too high and forgets to look down is like drifting clouds in the sky, beautiful yet fragile, vanishing with the wind. Look at Guan Yu's journey, a story painted with loyalty and arrogance, radiant yet tragic. He was the sworn brother of Liu Bei and Zhang Fei, pledging to live and die together. Guan Yu's talents were unmatched. At the Battle of Bai Maxia, he cut down the enemy general with ease. At the Battle of Xinyang, he crossed 1,000 miles on horseback, killing 6 generals and defeating 5 defenses, causing Cao Cao to fear him greatly. His green dragon crescent blade became a symbol of his might, and his long beard was a mark of his heroic spirit. When Liu Bei entrusted him with the strategic and dangerous region of Jingzhou, Guan Yu stood firm like a mountain, earning the respect of both Cao Cao and Sun Quan. But within him, pride began to grow, a shadow overshadowing his vision, and he no longer respected his enemies or acknowledged their hidden strengths. Guan Yu's mistake became most evident in the final days of his life. In 219, when Liu Bei declared himself emperor and set out to avenge Guan Yu's brother, Guan Yu was tasked with leading the army to attack Eastern Wu. His heart burned with anger over his brother's death, and he swore to crush Jiang Dong to avenge him. He ordered his soldiers to sew white flags for 3 days to mourn Guan Yu. But when 2 generals, Fan Gong and Zhang Da, delayed their work, Guan Yu, without asking for an explanation, lost his temper and shouted, "How dare you defy my orders?" He had them bound and brutally beaten, causing them to bleed heavily and filling their hearts with hatred. That night, Guan Yu, drunk in his tent, still unable to extinguish his anger, did not realize that disaster was near. Fan Gong and Zhang Da, filled with resentment, sneaked into his tent during the night, stabbed him to death, and took his head to Sun Quan to surrender. A mighty general who had once caused the world to tremble met his death in his sleep, unable to defend himself, simply because his pride had become a blade that turned against him. Guan Yu's fate serves as a deep warning. He was as loyal as the full moon, as powerful as a mountain, but arrogance was the wind that extinguished that light, the stone that caused the mountain to crumble. If he had been humble like Zhuge Liang, raising his fan quietly on the battlefield, or Sima Yi smiling at insults, perhaps he would have kept Jingzhou, and the Shu Han kingdom would not have faltered. But Guan Yu, seeing himself as the mighty river spirit, did not realize that even a great river can one day run dry, and that even a small enemy can raise its claws. Sun Quan was not as powerful as Cao Cao, and Lu Meng was not as talented as Zhuge Liang, but they triumphed because they knew when to bide their time, while Guan Yu fell due to his self-satisfaction and lack of preparation. The ancients taught, "Do not be proud when you are high, and do not be arrogant when things are going smoothly." Guan Yu stood high but was arrogant, letting the wind of self-satisfaction carry away his life, leaving behind a deep sigh for Liu Bei and future generations. Looking at Guan Yu, we reflect on our own lives. In this world, who hasn't stood at the top? Who hasn't thought of surpassing others? But the wise, like water flowing beneath stones, move gently and persistently. Those who are arrogant, like clouds drifting in the sky, are beautiful but unstable. Guan Yu is a great lesson, reminding future generations, talent is like jade, but humility is the vessel that holds it. Without the vessel, the jade is lost and shattered, and no one picks it up. In life, arrogance is like fire. It burns just enough to light the way. but burns too fiercely and it consumes the self. This truth remains unchanged. A humble heart is a boat that sails through the storm, while self-satisfaction is a stone sinking in the deep, unable to be rescued. Guan Yu, a hero of loyalty, ultimately fell because his own shadow grew too large, like the full moon covered by clouds, bright but no longer visible. Avoid hesitation. Yuan Shao. Indecision costs opportunities. Life is like a fast-flowing river. Those who steer their boats steadily navigate the waves to the shore, while those who hesitate at the crossroads are swept away by the current, lost without a destination. Under the vast sky where the wind blows and clouds drift endlessly, hesitation is a rope that binds the feet, turning even the most talented into the powerless and transforming opportunities into smoke that slips through the fingers. The ancients taught, decisiveness leads to success, hesitation leads to failure. Yuan Shao, a hero of the Three Kingdoms, whose power was as mighty as a mountain and whose army as numerous as the clouds, lost to Cao Cao at the Battle of Guandu, not because of a lack of skill, but because his indecision became a wall blocking his path, allowing opportunities to slip away like water flowing through his hands. He was a great wind that never blew far, a bright light that dimmed, illustrating the truth. One who hesitates at a crossroads like a boat without a rudder is carried away by the waves with no one to rescue them. Look at Yuan Shao's journey, a picture drawn with power and regret. Born into the prestigious Yuan family, a family of 4 generations of high-ranking officials, Yuan Shao held fame and wealth and led the alliance of lords against the tyrant Dong Zhuo when the Han dynasty was in decline. At that time, Yuan Shao sat as the supreme leader, his army vast like a high mountain, the land of Ji province sprawling under his control, and Cao Cao was but a mere peasant in comparison. Yuan Shao had skilled strategists like Tian Feng and Shen Pei, and powerful generals like Yan Liang and Wen Chou, making him believe that the world would soon be his. However, Yuan Shao harbored an unseen shadow, hesitation, like clouds covering the mountains, preventing him from taking bold action and seizing opportunities. He listened to advice but did not act on it, trusting in words but not in decisive action, letting golden opportunities slip away like birds flying past, leaving no trace. Yuan Shao's mistake became most apparent during the Battle of Guandu in 200. At that time, Cao Cao's army was much weaker than Yuan Shao's. Fewer soldiers, fewer supplies, and a limited territory. Tian Feng, a loyal strategist, offered a plan. Cao Cao's forces are weak. We should strike quickly, cut off their supply lines, and crush them. But Yuan Shao hesitated, heeded the advice of Shen Pei to prolong the battle, and followed the counsel of Guojia to wait for the right moment, not daring to act. He sat in his large tent, deliberating day after day, allowing Cao Cao to seize the opportunity to consolidate his forces and plan a counterattack. When Tian Feng suggested attacking the storage depot in Wosao, where Cao Cao kept his supplies, Yuan Shao doubted the plan, considering it too risky, and dismissed it as a passing thought. Cao Cao, with his sharp strategies, quietly led a small force to attack Yuan Shao's supply depot, setting fire to the storage and cutting off his logistics. Yuan Shao panicked, attempted to counter, but it was too late. His army disintegrated like leaves in autumn. Generals Yan Liang and Wen Chou fell in battle, and Tian Feng was imprisoned for daring to oppose the delay in action. Yuan Shao fled to Ji province, his power scattered, and his former glory faded away. Yuan Shao's fate serves as a deep cautionary tale. He was as strong as a mountain, as rich as the sea, but hesitation was the wind that extinguished that light, the stone that caused the mountain to crumble. If he had been decisive like Cao Cao, who struck quickly when the enemy was weak, or like Zhuge Liang, who knew when to act even in the fog of uncertainty. Perhaps the world would have been different. But Yuan Shao stood at the crossroads, his heart torn like a bird lost from its flock, too afraid to fly, allowing Cao Cao, who was weaker, to surge ahead like the wind pushing the clouds. He lost, not because his army was smaller, but because his heart lacked determination, not realizing that opportunities slip through like water through fingers. The ancients said, "When the time is not right, human efforts will not succeed." Yuan Shao lost his timing, leaving behind a sigh for future generations. Looking at Yuan Shao, we reflect on our own lives. In the human world, who hasn't stood at a crossroads, who hasn't hesitated between two paths? But the wise, like water flowing over rocks, choose a path and move forward without looking back. Those who hesitate, like Yuan Shao, stand by and watch the current pass by, not daring to jump in, allowing opportunities to drift away like clouds scattering before the wind. In life, decisiveness is the wind that pushes the boat through the storm, while hesitation is the rope binding the feet at the shore, with no one able to untie it. Yuan Shao is a great lesson, reminding future generations, opportunities are like birds flying across the sky. If you don't catch them, they are gone. A firm heart is like a knife cutting through ropes, but if you don't pick it up, it binds you forever. This truth remains unchanged throughout time. Decide and succeed, hesitate and fail, like the moon's reflection on the water, bright when observed in time but lost when the clouds cover it. Avoid abuse of power and cruelty. Dongzhuo. Tyranny brings disaster. Life is like a fire burning in the wilderness. If it burns just enough, it lights the way through the dark night. But if it burns too fiercely, it consumes the entire forest, leaving no trace. Under the vast sky, where the wind blows and dust swirls endlessly, abusing power and cruelty lead to ruin, like a river overflowing its banks, sweeping away even those who stand on the shore. The ancients taught, kindness is the root, cruelty is the disaster. Dongzhuo, a man of immense power in the Three Kingdoms, who held the imperial court in his grasp and was driven by greed, met a tragic end at the hands of his adopted son, Lu Bu. It was not due to stronger enemies, but because of his cruelty, which acted like a spreading fire that consumed everything, burning the hearts of others, and ultimately burning himself. He was a towering mountain that crumbled, a bright light that shattered, illustrating the truth. One who uses power as a sword and cruelty as armor is like setting fire to a field of grass, eventually burning themselves with no one to save them. Look at Dongzhuo's journey, a painting drawn with blood and gold, both dazzling and tragic. Born in Langzhou, a general at the frontier, Dongzhuo held military power and was trusted for his role in quelling the Kung tribes. When the Han dynasty weakened and the eunuchs killed the regent, He Jin, Dongzhuo seized the opportunity to march from Zhiliang into Luoyang and took control of the imperial court. He deposed Emperor Shao and installed Emperor Xian, declaring himself as the imperial protector, his power greater than the emperor's. With vast wealth and palatial splendor, he ruled like a king. However, Dongzhuo did not use his power to govern wisely or protect the people. Instead, he turned the court into a den of wolves and transformed the land into a sea of blood. He ordered indiscriminate killings, robbed the wealth of the people, forced labor for his lavish palaces, and anyone who disobeyed was executed. He indulged in alcohol and lust, raping the imperial consorts, causing widespread hatred, like a hidden current beneath the surface, with no one daring to speak, yet all bearing resentment. Dongzhuo's cruelty was most evident in his grandiose actions. Upon entering Luoyang, he ordered the burning of the city, plundered the treasury, and killed thousands of innocent people, turning the streets into rivers of blood and the skies into thick smoke. He tortured loyal officials like Lu Shi, cutting off tongues and severing hands, causing the court to live in fear, unable to speak out against him. The peak of his brutality was seen when he had a palace built at Mai, forcing the people to work day and night. Those who collapsed from exhaustion were buried alive on the spot. Dong Zhuo even held extravagant banquets where human flesh was served as a dish, laughing loudly as the cries of the people echoed in the background. He believed that power was an unbreakable throne, and cruelty was an armor no one could pierce, failing to see that each drop of blood shed was a cord of hatred tightening around his neck, and each cry was a gust of wind that extinguished his own light. Dong Zhuo's end came like an inevitable fate. In 192, as he drowned in wine and lust, Wang Yung, a loyal minister of the Han dynasty, devised a plan using Diao Chan as bait to stir up discord between Dong Zhuo and his adopted son, Lu Bu. Lu Bu, who had been disrespected by Dong Zhuo and was already envious of him due to Diao Chan, finally struck, killing Dong Zhuo with his Fang Tian Huaji in the court. Dong Zhuo's head was severed and his body was burned by the people. The masses cheered as if the weight of 1,000 burdens had been lifted. He died not because the lords of the land were stronger, but because his cruelty drove people away and his abuse of power led his closest allies to betray him. If Dong Zhuo had been merciful like Liu Bei, or used power wisely like Cao Cao, perhaps his fate would have been different. But he chose tyranny, leaving behind a legacy of curses for future generations. From Dong Zhuo, we learn a deep lesson. In life, power is like the wind. Blow it gently, and it will carry the boat far. Blow too forcefully, and the boat will capsize. Kindness is like the roots of a tree, firm and steady. Cruelty is like a blade that cuts down the tree before it harms anyone else. Dong Zhuo held the world in his hands, but lost the hearts of the people like a bird with broken wings unable to fly. The ancients said, "He who gains the hearts of the people gains the world. He who loses the hearts of the people loses everything." Dong Zhuo lost the hearts of the people, letting the fire of cruelty burn away his dreams, with his arrogance turned into mournful cries on the battlefield. Looking at Dong Zhuo, we reflect on our own lives. In this world, who hasn't held power, who hasn't wanted to use strength to dominate others? But the wise, like water flowing over stones, are soft yet enduring, using kindness to win hearts. The cruel, like Dong Zhuo, use a sword to establish power, only to have that sword turn back and strike themselves. In life, abuse of power is a fire. Burn just enough and it warms the heart. Burn too much and it consumes the self. Cruelty is like darkness. It doesn't make others darker, but only extinguishes one's own light. Dong Zhuo is a great lesson, reminding future generations. Power is the boat, kindness is the helm, and cruelty is the stone that sinks it. No one can pull it back. This truth is timeless. A kind heart is a road to far-reaching horizons, while cruelty is a dead end, like a flower blooming in the forest, beautiful but needing nourishment, not bloodshed.